there, a role there. Prime Minister.
Hello and welcome. I'm Kriti Mehta and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's start with a check of the top headlines this hour. US President Donald Trump says the operation in Venezuela, which culminated with strikes on the capital and the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, were part of what he coined the Dunro Doctrine. China's foreign ministry says the United States should immediately release Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife and resolve the situation in Venezuela through dialogue and negotiation. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung arrives in China eager to boost economic ties with Seoul's largest trading partner while keeping a lid on potentially explosive issues such as Taiwan. Yemen's southern separatists welcome a call for dialogue by Saudi Arabia to end the recent military escalation, a potential sign that an unusually public confrontation between the kingdom and the UAE must be easing. US President Donald Trump says he was frustrated with Russian President Vladimir Putin over the continued war in Ukraine, repeating that he had initially believed that ending the war would be easy. Myanmar's military government to release 6,186 prisoners under an amnesty marking Independence Day, a week after a multi-state general election began in the impoverished Southeast Asian nation. Starlink to provide free broadband service to the people of Venezuela till February 3, ensuring continued connectivity, Elon Musk posted on X saying that the move was in support of the people of Venezuela. Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro arrived at the Brooklyn Detention Center in New York following his indictment in the Southern District. The United Kingdom and France have jointly struck a suspected ISIS weapons dump in Syria. Britain's defense ministry said the strikes were to help prevent resurgence of the Daesh terrorist movement. The Constitutional Chamber of Venezuela Supreme Court ordered that Vice President Delcy Rodriguez assume the role of acting president of the country in the absence of Nicolas Maduro. Viewers, US President Donald Trump has captured the ousted president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro. But we are now going to tell you how and why did the US arrest Maduro. On 3rd of January, Donald Trump announced that the US had successfully completed Operation Absolute Resolve, a coordinated mission to capture Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores. The operation capped months of secret planning by US military and intelligence agencies. Preparations included intensive rehearsals and the construction of a full-scale replica of Maduro's fortified safe house. Elite troops, including Army Delta Force operators, practiced breaching heavy doors and handling high-risk scenarios. According to reports, CIA teams had been on the ground since August, monitoring Maduro's daily routines, and a source close to the president tracked his location in real time. The planning and rehearsals for the operation were reportedly completed in early December. In mid-December, the US began seizing Venezuelan oil tankers, effectively imposing a blockade. Following this, covert CIA operations were launched inside the country, with a drone strike hitting a port facility. An agreement was also signed in December with Trinidad and Tobago for the United States military to access its ports. The operation was earlier considered on Christmas Day but was delayed due to bad weather. Trump gave his final authorization for the operation at 11 p.m. Eastern Time on January 2, Friday. A major military buildup had already been underway, including an aircraft carrier, 11 warships, more than 30 dozen F-35 jets, and over 15,000 troops. More than that, 150 aircraft, including F-22s, B-1 bombers, drones, and support platforms were deployed from across the Western Hemisphere. The mission launched shortly before midnight with troops moving under cover of darkness. More than 150 US aircraft, including bombers, fighters, and reconnaissance planes, struck targets around Caracas, including military bases and defense installations, to maximize surprise and limit resistance. As strikes ranged across the city, Delta Force and other special operations units entered Maduro's fortified compound. Troops faced fire but proceeded with speed and precision, breaching heavy doors and securing the location. Maduro attempted to flee to a safe room but was captured along with his wife. They were flown to the US Iwo Jima, a US amphibious assault ship, where they were taken into custody and secured aboard the vessel for transport to US territory. They were then taken to New York's DEA detention facility to face drug trafficking charges. The operation was completed without US casualties, and the capture of Venezuela's leader marked an unprecedented US military intervention in Latin America. Joining me in this discussion is Ambassador Suresh Goyal, who is a former Indian diplomat, and he joins us from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador Goyal, for joining me in this discussion. Of course, it's a separate conversation whether Trump was, in his judicial limits to do the operation that he has conducted. But right now, let's talk about the operation itself. Operation Resolve was carried out with precise, strict precision, no casualties, and specific locations targeted. Maduro was flown out of the country without anybody really even knowing about it. What kind of planning do you think would have gone into it? Of course, months of planning, and Trump had been signaling this was coming. But it had just happened when Maduro had said that he was open for a dialogue. Yes. About some time from now, the strikes and then Maduro's capture, his arrest, and he'll be produced in the court in US today. Talk to us about the details of the operation that he has carried out.
Well, Kirti, I must say that the details that you have given, I don't have those details. So I must thank you very much, first of all, for sharing the details on this bulletin and making me really familiar with the kind of precision and the kind of details which the US operation had procured and had inhabited. Now, the point, my simple point really here is two. Number one, such precision of an operation is possible only if the armed forces who are conducting the operation, or the Delta Force, which is actually a police kind of an operation, it's not really, it's an FBI narco-terrorism operation, and therefore, in terms of definition, USA tried to, even though President Trump may call it aggression, war, etc., but it was basically a police operation to capture Maduro. Such kind of a precision is possible only if there was inside information with this. So somewhere down the line, there were people, I'm quite convinced of it, even though it is not really talked about, but I'm quite convinced that some people within Maduro's close circles, how would the US FBI agents would know where the safe house is, where to find him, and where to capture him. With all the police forces, you see the visuals trying to protect the palace. They get access to it without firing a bullet. So obviously somebody, either they just gave up, or somebody was actually in the operation with them. Number one. Number two, as far as Maduro has been taken to the district courts in New York, and he will obviously be prosecuted in the district court. But to the best of my understanding, it is going to be a sham case really for prosecution. because eventually the idea is to really prosecute and imprison Maduro. Maybe life or not, I don't know, but put him behind the bars on narco-terrorism charges, and he has been already basically made a convict in this sense. So that I think will be a sham trial. Ultimately, he will be behind the bars, just like what happened to the Panamanian president or Honduras president. USA is very fond of being not just a policeman, but the judge and everything, and guarantor and prosecutor of all legal cases.
Yeah.
In America, they seem to be basically, as they consider that to be the area of their influence. So that is number two. Number three, Trump has already announced that he intends to remain in Venezuela till there is a transition to an acceptable government in Venezuela. Now, define who is acceptable, who is not acceptable, whether elections which are supposed to take place after 30 days will elect like this, or will Trump try to ensure that somebody of his choice actually becomes the president? Because the idea really is that he wants to control the oil industry there in Venezuela. And he doesn't want somebody there who actually confronts him and who provokes him or challenges him. So all said and done, I think, sorry, last point, in Maduro, in Venezuela, there are people who are opposed to Maduro. Whether it is against the international conduct or not is a different point. And I'm really shuddering to think if that tomorrow Trump decides that India has to be punished and they use Pakistan, which is their vassal state, or in Afghanistan, Bagram Air Base, they use the air bases in Pakistan to think of an operation of this kind for India. That would be really, really huge. But Trump, being the man what he is, he's so volatile, but nothing seems to be past him really. So what I'm saying here is that it has changed the way international affairs are conducted, but Venezuela, to all my understanding, is not going to remain really live fire beyond a few days. And eventually, I think Trump will have control in Venezuela through an elected government or through a government of his choice.
Indeed. All right, but let's discuss another point now. We've been showing to our viewers on the map the route that was taken to flee Maduro, to take him from Venezuela to the US. I request my team to put that back on the screens, please. This map on our screens, viewers, is showing the route which the US forces took to take Maduro from Venezuela to the US, and of course, they've taken the oceanic routes. Ambassador Goel, you would know that Venezuela is using surveillance facilities that were provided to it by China. China has also invested about $100 billion in Venezuela. Now that the country comes under the control of the US, do you think it could backfire China? And does it also speak about the failure of Chinese services in what until people were believing Venezuela was using for surveillance?
Good question, Kirti here. First of all, I do not know who were manning the surveillance station established by China in Venezuela. I assume that these were Venezuelan people really. And I've already said that there was inside information and there were people within the close circle who probably were sharing information with the USA or who were actually working with the USA. And therefore, again, surprisingly, if the surveillance station is not able to even give information about the American helicopters and the planes coming into Venezuela, either it's a failure of the equipment or it's a failure of the people. I will not go beyond that for the time being. As far as your other question is concerned about, sorry, what was your first question? My apologies.
I wanted to ask you about the Chinese, assistance and help to Venezuela. Up until now, it was helping Venezuela with surveillance facilities as well. So clearly that failed because Maduro did not see this coming. There were, who knows, sleuths or infiltrators in his own safe houses or in his closed chambers. He was picked up from his own house in the manner that he was.
Look, China was benefiting from the Venezuelan oil supplies. I'm told that Venezuela was being paid in yuan for the oil it supplied to China. So in a sense, China was benefiting not only from the supply, but also by basically converting their own yuan into the trade currency, international trade currency. China is guided purely by its interests in the region, and here, in case of Venezuela, it seems to be oil. Therefore, all I would say here is China probably will wait for the situation to evolve. We'll see which way the regime goes, and possibly either come to an understanding either with the USA or find other oil suppliers in the region, not in the region, maybe in Middle East or Iran, uh, other sources for its own energy industry. I don't think China is going to lose its sleep over Venezuela beyond a few days.
All right, we'll watch out for those developments. But thank you very much for joining me in this discussion for now, Ambassador Goel. And now moving ahead, viewers, let's also tell you that US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has said that American soldiers returned following the successful mission in Venezuela. Hegseth praised the dedication of US service members, calling it the best of America in action. When asked about congressional approval for future steps in Venezuela, Hegseth described the operation as a law enforcement exercise, but emphasized that Congress would remain involved. He stated that the next steps would ultimately be up to the Venezuelan people, but added that the US stands to gain both security and prosperity, particularly oil. Hegseth also hailed President Trump as a president of action, asserting that you don't get peace without strength. All right, I request Ambassador Goel to join me back in this discussion with his comment here.
Okay.
Sure, please go ahead.
So, look, Hegseth as the defense secretary is a creation of Trump. I don't expect Hegseth or Rubio to say anything other than what Trump wants. Trump has clearly indicated and clearly projected the operation which he directed as a success of the US Armed Forces. He has said so many things in the press conference which I'm not going to repeat. Therefore, Hegseth saying that the military people from the US have returned after the successful operation is actually a statement of the fact. It's a statement of how Trump sees the operation, and clearly without any casualties on ground or in the air, coming back in totality after killing quite a few, I don't know how many Venezuelan people, and capturing Maduro and his wife. And it's rather shameful to see Maduro and his wife, president the day before, and the first lady the day before, being taken through the court like common criminals. I shudder really. This is not what I thought the international affairs was. But nonetheless, Trump has proved, and so has Hegseth at the command of Trump, that the military is always a ruler. The military might is the one which is going to call the shots. And that's a reason when we talk about United Nations Security Council, let us see what it can do. It's going to be basically just a parrot's voice. Yes.
Yeah, the UN is meeting tomorrow, so we'll indeed watch out for the developments that take place there. But thank you very much once again, Ambassador Goel, for speaking to us. And moving ahead now, viewers, in New York, a group of Venezuelans gathered near a local heliport to celebrate the arrival of ousted leader Nicolas Maduro following his capture by US forces in Caracas. For many, it was a moment long awaited. Martucci expressed hope that Maduro would finally face justice. The crowd in New York cheered as the man once seen as a symbol of oppression is now in US custody.
It's the best day of our lives. We were hoping for this moment to happen for a long time, and we're just hopeful that he will serve, he will face justice. That's all we want.
No, una emoción muy grande al ver que esto se está ocurriendo. No lo creíamos, o sea, que estábamos aquí hasta que lo viéramos y fuera real. Es una emoción, pasamos bastante frío, pero vimos que se logró, pues. Esperamos mucha paz, mucha tranquilidad, poder volver tranquilo a nuestro país y que garanticen la tranquilidad, porque tenemos muchas familias en Venezuela y de verdad que esta transición preocupaba muchísimo de mi parte, pues.
Pero gracias a Dios ya es un paso que el señor Donald Trump dio y nos da esa satisfacción de poder tener nuestro país libre. Todavía falta la transición, pero ya dio un paso, pues, que es lo importante para nosotros.
And moving ahead, viewers, the Colombian Defense Minister Pedro Sanze has said that there is high tension as there is serious crisis in Venezuela following the ouster of the US military of Venezuelan President Maduro. Let's listen in.
Hay alta tensión, hay alta crisis, por decirlo así, que uno de ellos llama a la sensatez, otra al buen juicio y otra a un sentido de humanidad. Entonces estamos aquí bajo esos tres criterios, pero también en tres líneas estratégicas que el presidente de la República ha determinado en los dos consejos extraordinarios de seguridad que ha hecho para proteger a Colombia. Uno tiene que ver la línea diplomática.
Meanwhile, the Colombian President Gustavo Petro has said that he has ordered the deployment of military forces to the Venezuelan border following the US strikes. I now welcome Ben Eris, a former Moscow bureau head of the Telegraph, to join me in this discussion. He joins us from Berlin. Thank you very much, Ben, for joining me in this discussion. Ben, what do you think is next for these countries whose leaders are now in fear, whether it's Colombia, whether it's Cuba, whether it's Iran, or even China as far as Taiwan is concerned? How much worried should they be, if at all?
Absolutely, they need to be worried. This has been very destabilizing in so much as, you know, the West, America has been selling itself as the protector of the international rules-based order where the rule of law prevailed. And what Trump has done here is ridden roughshod over the international law and the UN Charter and attacked a sovereign nation with military force and kidnapped, I mean, we should call a spade a spade here, he's kidnapped the president. America has no jurisdiction in Venezuela, and it has no right, regardless of Maduro's crimes, which are palpable, which are obvious. It has no jurisdiction, and it can't just go and snatch a president. And I think everyone has to recalculate now in their relationships with the states, particularly, that, you know, to what extent it's now a risk is that America's going to hit me with military force. This has always been a threat. And to what extent the elite, the presidents, the prime ministers are a threat of being snatched by American military operations. And so in that sense, I think this undermines international stability. It undermines the rule of law because it's a might makes right situation. And everyone has to make this very raw calculation now about where they stand with the states.
Well, indeed, colonial approach now, another neo-colonial approach that the US is saying, and also a mockery of the Monroe Doctrine. Trump now going on to call it the Don Roe Doctrine after Venezuela. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, the Monroe Doctrine, I mean, it's like, you know, 100-year-old mentality. It's like, you know, the Western Hemisphere belongs to the USA, and it has the right to do what it likes in that sphere in order to ensure its supremacy. And that's not what we signed up for. I mean, the Helsinki process, the United Nations, these are all about, you know, the equality of nations. UN Charter is that sovereign states are sanctimony, and that you do not and cannot invade and threaten and undermine the sovereignty of another country, and that's just what's happened. And the USA is saying, like, we're ignoring all of that. We're going back to, like, you know, colonial days, to imperialist days, where we simply have the biggest army and that allows us to do what we want. And we're supposed to have put all of that behind us, and clearly we haven't. And moreover, Trump is is lauding this return to this imperialistic mentality, the Monroe Doctrine, where the US is supposed to work for its own advantage, and putting itself ahead and above all other countries, to the point where it just ignores international law. I don't know, the rest of the world global community can't accept that. And even the EU has mildly rebuked the US, but because of its power, it can't openly rebuke it. I mean, when Russia did this and invaded Ukraine, we piled sanctions on it. The same sanctions should apply to the US. Where are they?
Exactly.
No one's even talking about that.
Yeah, sure. Agreed. Do stay on with me, Ben. There's some breaking news also now coming in. Where Starlink is providing free broadband service to the people of Venezuela through February 3, ensuring connectivity is continued. Starlink founder, billionaire Elon Musk has made that statement on X, saying that the move was in support of the people of Venezuela. This, in fact, comes after Tesla and X owner was spotted at the dinner party thrown by US President Trump at his Florida resort. All right, let's have Ben back in the discussion here. Ben, should this be seen as a precursor to an intensive American takeover in Venezuela and an attempt to increase surveillance on the country?
Trump is transparently all about business. I mean, this is what's driving his foreign policy. Is he is very acutely aware of the mineral dependency, critical minerals, rare earth metals, that the US has on China. And actually, he's right about that. That this is a strategically extremely weak point for the States, because China can shut down America's tech industry overnight and do it massive damage. And so he's been pursuing these, everything he does is backed by some sort of minerals, or in this case, in Venezuela's case, it's oil interests. And that's what he wants. And so the companies, you know, I know the Musk is doing his Starlink thing again. But I mean, the big American companies are champing at the bit to do this. And in all of his foreign policy, that Trump is interested in pushing and creating opportunities for American companies to do work. And Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world, 303 billion barrels. And they are massively undeveloped. The amount of production and export of Venezuelan oil is pitifully small given the amount of reserves it has. And so Trump's hoping to open the country up, not just for oil investments, but also in minerals, and big pharma it's also a significant consumer market. And so he's going to do everything he can to push American interests there. And Musk, of course, and Tesla, I mean, he's also interested as American representative of big American business. Those guys are going to follow in very quickly. And that's actually the point. That's the point of what Trump's doing, is to open the market up and give American companies access to Venezuela.
Sure. Well, thanks then, Ben, for joining me in this discussion. It was a pleasure to speak with you and have you on our show. And with that, let's proceed. Now, the European Union has also expressed concern over reports of deaths and violence during ongoing demonstrations in Iran. Officials are calling on Tehran to exercise maximum restraint in dealing with the protesters. European Union Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas's office stressed that Iranian authorities must uphold the rights to freedom of expression, association and peaceful assembly. The statement also urged the immediate release of anyone arrested solely for taking part in peaceful protests, highlighting growing international attention on Iran's response to public unrest. And now moving ahead, that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching NewsX World, as we bring you every major news and updates from around the world.